Hello, everyone. Welcome to This, That, and the Other, where we talk about Detroit and Michigan State sports. Today's just a front page headline day for Michigan State with Mark Dantonio stepping down as head football coach. This move was not really expected at this this juncture, with signing day being tomorrow. And, those decisions are usually made, soon after the season ends. And a lot of people are making a big deal about his timing and about other implications about his settlement with Curtis Blackwell. And I'm not going to get into that today. I'm going to focus on the positive and a little bit of, the reality of the situation. I'm not a beat writer and I'm not a columnist, so I'm not going to, try to add those juicy details about those things. And, I don't think there's anything that you could look at Dantonio and say that he is not a class act guy and just a stand-up person. I think he's proven that time and again. He is things off the field. There's been a lot of talk about it over the past, ever since, their decline in 2016 all the way up till now. But, I always thought most of that stuff was unbased. Most of it is. ESPN came out with a piece trying to basically shame him and Tom Izzo. And that was a while ago, but every now and then things just would come up. He said, she said, he said, about, little rumors about things that were going on. But that's the last that I'm going to talk about that. So this is a tough time for the football program, but as a fan, it's kind of a relief. And sad to see Mark Dantonio go. I've said it before. He is at the top of my totem pole when it comes to people that I guess you could say idolize. He's probably my favorite sports figure of all time. I'm probably his number one fan. Just kidding about that, but But seriously, there's no one that there's no one that really does it for me quite like Dantonio. So, but I felt like I was saying, I felt like it was a relief. Things were not getting better for him as a 13-year head coach. I think his best days were behind him, and he didn't seem like he had any more tricks up his sleeve at the end. He was starting to do things that Dantonio teams don't do, and that was losing big games by a lot of points consecutively. In the best times, he'd win almost all of them. But, the past 2 years, he had, I think, one ranked win, against Penn State the past couple of years. So they were just getting fewer and fewer every year. And this year, while it wasn't a banner year, Michigan State was able to, salvage a little bit of pride by winning their last two games in the regular season and winning their bowl game against a good Wake Forest team. It might not sound like much, but, you're Mark Dantonio. You get to go out with a bowl win, with a winning season. Very turbulent season. Tough I won't say tough loss. It was an embarrassing loss to Michigan, as well as Ohio State and Penn State and Arizona State. All their losses were pretty embarrassing. The ones they did lose, Illinois, that's another one. And I'm trying to think of if there was another one. I think I got them all, so don't want to relive those. But there was the losses were they were bad losses. They were the kind of losses that they were just the losses that make you feel like something isn't right here. You know, it just feels it feels like, Dantonio left at a spot. Things could have been better when he left, but sure, they could have been worse. Things can always be worse. Like I said, going out with a winning season, winning your bowl game, winning your last game, that's I won't say it's a big deal, but it is a nice way to go out, even with those bad losses. So, they've been declining for a while. But what I really thought was interesting, the 2017 season, where they flipped the script and just kind of reinforced, the idea that their program was coming back and was still strong. It was just it was weird to look back, today, because we've had two mediocre seasons in a row, but we all thought that we were, still strong as ever, and that we just had a hiccup the year before. But that 3-9 season, was kind of the beginning of the end, and people thought when that season happened the sky was falling. But it's funny how reality plays out. The sky wasn't falling, but at the same time, it was kind of the beginning of a decline for Michigan State. So just got to feel good for him being able to kind of get in touch with reality a little bit and make a decision to change something that wasn't working anymore, and to save some of his dignity, or spare some of his dignity. And I'm not trying to make that sound like he doesn't have any. He's but you got to face it, times have been tough for him and Michigan State. So I think it's relevant, but no way that Michigan State fans can repay him for what he's meant to the program. I'd have to say, if I had to choose a favorite win in his time as head coach, probably the Ohio State Big Ten Championship game, 2013. That was when we had really arrived. You could say the Rose Bowl, but for me, I was actually more concerned about the Ohio State game than I was the Rose Bowl. Even though they trailed most of the game in the Rose Bowl, I always felt that they were going to win that game, because it just seemed like they weren't getting the breaks early on, but Michigan State was playing better. Anyways, that was a nice little, not really little, 5 of 6 seasons, winning 11 games. That was the pinnacle, and we'll always remember those moments. They were just coming in buckets for a while. They were winning big games against Ohio State. They were beating Michigan consistently. They were winning national games, non-conference games against Baylor and against Stanford and, Georgia, you name it. And they went to a bowl game all but 1 year under him. And, I'm not sure, but Michigan State probably had been to a comparable number of bowl games before Dantonio took over in their entire history than when he was coach. So, big accomplishment. And, I guess there's not much left to say. As a fan, I'm just going to miss him. I'm going to miss those memories. And, he took over when I was a junior in high school, I believe. And they, I was very impressionable at that time. And I hadn't seen Michigan State win big games in football. I'd only known disappointment. I grew up, in high school, mostly it was John L. Smith and a lot of disappointment. Before that, there just wasn't a whole lot good happening in football. And Mark Dantonio, he flipped the script, and what he did worked for a good period of time. For probably 10 or 11 out of his 13 years, he had the right formula, and he continued to prove himself. And you just can't even imagine all the time you spent rooting for the team, or all the games you've watched while he was coach, and all the big moments, and moments that maybe seem small but at the time were big. But I really have nothing bad to say about the person. But I guess in conclusion, I think it was time for him to go. Hang in there if you're a State football fan. Probably rough times are ahead. Going to have to go into exile a little bit, but that's what you get when you lose a legendary coach. So if you're watching the game this fall and you see Michigan State losing by 40 points to Miami, then just remember that it's hard to replace a Hall of Fame head coach. And don't take it for granted, and don't ever forget those moments. They're important. They mean a lot to anyone who went to Michigan State. So, just want to say farewell. Obviously, if there was any way he was listening to this, I'd like to say farewell. And I'd like to say thanks for the great memories. And I'd like to say, thanks for, showing me what, determination and persistence and, the steady, mentality that he had, the blue collar work ethic, all those great things. I'd just like to say thank you for, kind of revealing that to me. So farewell to Coach D. And as he says at the end of every one of his press conferences, go green.